Incredible confession revealed: how one shy girl discovered 5 life-changing secrets from the CEO. Lucy stood alone at her desk, her heart racing as she thumbed through her notes from the past week. The fluorescent lights buzzed above like annoying insects, blurring the bustling voices of her co-interns around her. Every loud laugh, every animated discussion pounded into her like a weight, making her feel more invisible than ever. Just 2 weeks into her internship at the prestigious multinational company, the reality struck her hard: her academic accomplishments meant little in this sea of extroverted brilliance. She had poured so much of herself into her studies, only to arrive here a forgotten player in a game controlled by the confident and boisterous. But then there was Tom. The enigmatic CEO, all charm and energy, found something in her, something more than just the portfolio of proposals she recently submitted. To others, she was nothing, but to him, she was a potential rock star waiting to shine. The growing mentorship filled her with a flicker of hope, igniting a determination she hadn't known she had. In those private moments, Tom shared his 5 secrets to career success. Be authentic, build connections, take risks, embrace feedback, and most importantly, never underestimate your own voice, he advised, words rolling off his tongue like a roadmap to success. Each piece felt like a key to liberation, helping her visualize an exit from the shadows. Yet, the buzz of excitement quickly morphed into anxiety. As she observed more, it became glaringly clear that favoritism corrupted the workspace, impeding the ambitions of her fellow interns and her own. What had been a thrill now began constricting her heart like a vice. How could she reconcile loyalty to Tom, who seemed to care about her potential, and the troubling reality staring her in the face? Her family's values screamed inside her head: perseverance and loyalty, that's what she'd been raised on. But what about ethics? What about justice? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Caught in a whirling storm of emotions, Lucy felt the weight of her decision intensify with each passing day. Every meeting with Tom left her with conflicted thoughts, yearning to voice what she had seen behind the curtain. The lines between right and wrong, loyalty and integrity began to blur. Deep down, a sense of desperation began to grow. Could one quiet voice truly challenge the system? The thought chilled her. What if she spoke up and was met with disbelief? What if the very mentor who had given her hope turned out to be just another cog in the machine? And what about her future? Each question left her breathless, the tension wrapping around her like a shackle. The clock was ticking, and the moment of choice loomed over her like a dark cloud, threatening to burst. Lucy stared into the polished surface of her desk, grappling with the harsh reality of her situation. Would she embrace her burgeoning courage, or would she retreat back into the shadows, hoping Tom would somehow shield her from the storm ahead? Lucy's internal struggle deepened as the days wore on, each passing moment enveloping her in a thick fog of uncertainty. She scrutinized the faces around her, the heavily animated conversations of her peers that both thrilled and terrified her. It became clear that some were rising swiftly through the ranks, securing opportunities she thought were reserved for hard work and dedication alone. One afternoon, as the team assembled for a brainstorming session, Lucy felt a sudden, defiant impulse to speak up. The topic was a new project proposal, and as her colleagues tossed ideas around, Lucy's mind whirled with thoughts on how to contribute. Yet, as the minutes ticked away, doubt gnawed at her resolve. Previously, she would have stayed quiet, letting the noise of confidence drown her out. Then, Tom arrived. His presence ignited a flicker of excitement. Standing at the front of the room, he encouraged everyone to voice their ideas freely, but his gaze landed on Lucy. It was a small, casual acknowledgement, yet it filled her with an unexpected strength. "Lucy, do you have anything to share? His voice, firm yet encouraging, pulled her out of her reverie. Under the pressure of his gaze, she felt both the weight of expectation and the thrill of possibility. Was this her moment? Would she leverage the wisdom he imparted about embracing her own voice? With her heart hammering, she took a deep breath and launched into her thoughts on the proposal, combining elements she'd studied in class and insights gleaned from her observations of the market. As the words flowed, a surge of empowerment surged through her. The initial shock in the room turned into intrigue, the faces shifting from skepticism to engagement. Tom nodded approvingly, his eyes glinting with what she hoped was admiration. But once the meeting concluded, the surrounding buzz quickly morphed into hushed whispers. Lucy overheard snippets of conversation that made her stomach churn. "She's not cut out for this," one coworker sneered, while another suggested how others were more deserving of the attention she'd commanded. Doubt rushed back in as she absorbed the undercurrents of disdain cloaked in laughter. Perhaps she was just a flash in the pan, a momentary ID that would soon fade back into anonymity. After the meeting, she found solace in Tom's office. She had come to him seeking mentorship but now realized she desperately needed guidance on navigating this new terrain. With her heart racing, she decided to be honest about her feelings. "Tom, I appreciate the support, but I can't help but feel that the favoritism is affecting not only me but everyone around us." His reaction was immediate, the smile easing from his face as he sat up straighter. "You're seeing it, then?" he replied, leaning forward with a grave look. "It's a complicated dynamic, Lucy. It's why I've been wary of bringing you too close." Disbelief coursed through her, stinging. Could the man who guided her be so aware and yet unchanged by the very issues plaguing their environment? Determination rose in her chest as she made a silent vow to explore this murky territory further. The confrontation had ignited a new fire within her, one that demanded both courage and clarity. As she left Tom's office, plans began to crystallize in her mind. If she could carve her own path, not only for herself but also for the others marginalized in silence, perhaps she could be the change she wanted to see. With each step toward her desk, she contemplated how to mold her newfound strength into a strategy. What would it look like to challenge the status quo without losing herself? The thought echoed ominously, an intense realization that she was on the cusp of something monumental. But in the back of her mind, a chilling question remained: would her efforts culminate in empowerment or lead her down a perilous path filled with unforeseen consequences? Lucy knew one thing for certain: the moment to act was fast approaching. The gaming of favoritism would not be allowed without challenge any longer. And perhaps, just perhaps, her voice would not just echo in the shadows but resonate powerfully in the halls of the firm. Beneath her resolve, a nagging uncertainty lurked, whispering sinister reminders about the fallout of bravery. But the urgency surged within her, propelling her forward. What would she discover when finally faced with the truth of this intricate web? The die was cast, but she sensed another turning point looming. Would she have the fortitude to confront Tom about what lay beneath the surface? The days that followed Lucy's encounter with Tom became a crucible for her resolve. Each day at the office was a tightrope walk between her newfound defiance and the suffocating whispers trailing her like shadows. The unspoken consensus was palpable, a lingering reminder of the precariousness of her position. Her thoughts churned, more chaotic than ever, igniting a fire within. If she was to challenge the current dynamics, she would need to be strategic, deliberate in her actions and words. Instead of retreating into her shell, Lucy began observing her colleagues intently. She recognized patterns in their behavior, noting who seemed to command respect, who embraced the spotlight, and who quietly operated in the background. The more she watched, the more she understood that confidence was not merely about volume but about presence, an uncanny ability to own a space, to embody authority regardless of the actual role one played. One evening, Lucy returned home and sifted through her notes from the brainstorming session, replaying every moment in her mind. The thrill of being heard was intoxicating, yet the memory of the dismissive comments haunted her. She realized the stakes were higher than her individual voice. the environment could perpetuate a cycle of silence if no one dared to disrupt it. With a gnawing sensation propelling her forward, she began outlining her ideas for creating an internal workshop, a safe space where all team members could voice their thoughts and feedback regarding project dynamics. This was more than a mere proposal, it was an attempt to carve out a collective platform to empower the entire team, especially those who might feel marginalized. But doubts lingered. Would her intent be misconstrued? Would it be seen as a challenge to authority? She recalled Tom's words about being wary of favoritism. It felt like a double-edged sword and she needed to navigate it carefully. As the week progressed, Lucy drafted a proposal for the workshop and meticulously planned how she would present it. She rehearsed in front of the mirror, channeling her insecurities into her delivery. If she was to be a catalyst for change, she couldn't allow her fears of rejection to clip her wings. Finally, the day of the meeting arrived. Her heart raced as she gathered her materials, replaying mantras to fortify her emerging confidence. There was a distinct difference in her demeanor. She no longer slouched at her desk, she settled in with purpose, shoulders back, head high. When the moment came, Lucy stood before the team, encapsulated in a whirlwind of apprehension and anticipation. "I'd like to propose an initiative," she began, feeling her previous trepidation begin to ebb as she spoke. "A workshop focused on leveraging our collective insights and improving team dynamics." As she articulated her vision, Lucy felt the atmosphere shift. Colleagues who had previously dismissed her began to lean in, curiosity etched on their faces. Tom's expression shifted from surprise to contemplation. She steadied her voice, enunciating each word with increasing conviction. But the silence that followed her presentation hung thick in the air. Was it approval or simply shock? The moment was electrifying, yet the uncertainty lingered like a specter. Lucy's mind raced. What if the initiative was rejected? What if it further estranged her from her peers? Tom broke the heavy silence, his words held a note of caution. "That's an interesting idea, Lucy, but we need to consider the implications." He was interrupted by another colleague who, surprisingly, stepped in to advocate for her. "No, I think this could actually help us all. We've been stagnant for too long." The unexpected support bolstered her confidence, igniting a ripple of encouragement through the room. Once the discussion began to evolve, and more voices joined in, Lucy glimpsed the change she sought, an opening to create an inclusive environment. As momentum built, she realized that she had tapped into something potent, a smoldering force that could change the narrative. However, in the midst of her exhilaration, a nagging worry surfaced. Would Tom reassert his authority in a way that undermined her contribution? As the meeting progressed, she fixed her gaze on him, aware that the next few moments would define her trajectory. Yet deeper questions loomed now that she had made her mark. Could she uphold her newfound influence, or would she remain tethered to a past where her voice was muffled by silence? The balance between challenge and compliance hung precariously in the air. But as the conversation continued to evolve, she grew aware of another undeniable truth: she was standing not just for herself, but for the latent potential within everyone present. Would that very realization galvanize her resolve to confront Tom on his complicity in the environment she'd begun to challenge? The moment of deeper confrontation felt imminent, pushing her ever closer to the heart of the web she aimed to unravel. The meeting room buzzed with a newfound energy that filled Lucy with a mix of exhilaration and anxiety. As she stood silently, watching her colleagues engage in animated discussions, she was acutely aware of the weight of her proposal hanging in the atmosphere like a storm cloud ready to burst. Each voice rising in support felt like a victory, yet she could not shake the feeling of vulnerability. Would they genuinely embrace this shift, or was it destined to be another cycle of enthusiasm followed by indifference? Tom's face was inscrutable, revealing nothing as he listened intently, arms crossed, head tilted slightly. The memory of their earlier conversations loomed large. She had challenged him without even realizing how deeply that had unsettled her own foundation. What if he decided to reclaim authority over her initiative? What if he stepped in to exert control, framing it as his own? The stakes felt as if they had elevated significantly. As they rolled into deeper analysis, Lucy felt the pulse of the room, the shifting energies, the eagerness and skepticism woven together into an intricate tapestry. Colleagues who had once overlooked her words were now actively debating the merits of her proposal, demonstrating an inclination toward change that she had hardly anticipated. For the first time, Lucy felt truly seen, but it wasn't just her fear of rejection that sent her heart racing. It was the idea that perhaps she was sparking an awakening within her colleagues that had long been stifled. When the meeting came to a close, Tom finally spoke, his voice resonating stillness as he weighed in. "I see potential in the idea, Lucy. However, we need to ensure that it aligns with our current goals." He paused, suppressing a smirk. "We all know how easily open forums can spiral into chaos." His word struck her. Was he undermining her attempt to revolutionize the team dynamics? The tension tightened within her chest. Faced with the choice of backing down or asserting her vision, Lucy's thoughts tangled. She had stepped into the light. Retreat now would only push her back into the shadows she'd been trying to escape. "I believe, Tom," Lucy interjected, her voice steady and unwavering, "that a structured workshop could provide a much-needed platform for everyone's views. We can foster something productive, something that fits into our goals without sacrificing coherence." The room went quiet. She was genuinely surprised at the conviction behind her own words. Lucy was no longer merely a bystander in a conversation but a participant shaping the dialogue. It was an unfamiliar sensation, adrenaline coursing through her veins, even as doubt purred like a cat within her mind. What authority did she have to question Tom? "Let us not forget the chaos you mentioned," she continued, a calculated boldness guiding her. "Avoiding conversations because they might be uncomfortable has only held us back." As she spoke, she fought the urge to glance at him for his reaction, focusing instead on her colleagues, willing them to see her determination. Tom's brow furrowed, and in that split second, she detected a chink in his confident armor. The other voices in the room swelled, rallied by her assertiveness. They began vocalizing support for her, suggesting topics for discussion within the workshop structure, and soon the collective entitlement of ideas poured forth, each person buoying the others. Lucy's heart soared. Maybe the tides were turning more than she had dared to hope. But as triumph surged within, another realization gnawed at her. Would Tom retaliate? A quiet fear wormed its way back into her consciousness, whispering that she had painted a target on her back by stepping beyond her so-called boundaries. Days later, Lucy observed the subtle shifts in interactions around the office, the way some colleagues began seeking her out, asking for her input on projects. It was invigorating yet unsettling. Had she managed to redefine her place, or were they simply reacting to a transient spark? The impending workshop loomed heavy, almost foreboding, suggesting that the real battle of wills had yet to unfold. As Lucy reflected on her journey so far, an unsettling knot tightened within her. The moment had arrived for her to confront the deeper complexities of her ambitions and the ever-elusive challenge of hierarchy. The workshop was just the surface. The real confrontation with Tom, and perhaps even herself, still lay on the horizon. With each passing moment, the weight of this challenge became undeniable. Could she truly reshape her department and finally render her voice powerful, or would it all be for naught? A cold sense of urgency stung her resolve. The next step needed to be strategic and bold. Would the looming confrontation finally reveal the truth behind Tom's authority, and would Lucy's voice resonate unbroken, or would she falter under the weight of expectation? The morning of the workshop arrived, a significant milestone that had been both a source of anticipation and trepidation for Lucy. As she prepared her materials, her fingers brushed over the invitation cards she'd painstakingly designed for this occasion. Each card symbolized her commitment to transforming the team's approach, a token of the shift she wished to inspire. But were her intentions enough to eclipse the specter of Tom's dominance that loomed over her? As she entered the conference room, the sight before her was both encouraging and intimidating. Colleagues had gathered, their faces a blend of curiosity and skepticism. She greeted them, her voice steady, wanting to mask the tumult inside. While some had offered her tentative smiles, others remained neutral, their expressions unreadable. The weight of expectation hung in the air, thickening with each passing moment. With Tom seated prominently at the head of the table, Lucy felt that familiar churn of discomfort. It was as if his presence fractured the burgeoning confidence she had cultivated in the days leading up to this. Reminding herself of her goal to empower and engage her colleagues, she steadied herself against the tide of doubt. "Thank you all for coming today," she began, her voice projecting an earnestness she hoped would travel to every corner of the room. "We're here to address the challenges we've faced and to explore new pathways that could lead us to more effective collaboration." The room shifted, some leaned in, a few exchanged glances, their collective curiosity lighting a brighter spark than she had anticipated. Fueled by a newfound determination, Lucy continued, "I believe our approach has stifled innovation. Today, I want us to foster an open dialogue, to explore ideas without fear of judgment." Tom leaned back, crossing his arms tighter, his disconcertingly calm demeanor presenting a wall she felt compelled to breach. "This structure you proposed, how do you suggest it remains focused?" he queried, interrupting her flow. There it was, the challenge she had expected. "For too long, I think we've limited ourselves," Lucy countered, trying to maintain her composure as she gazed around the room. "If we allow discomfort to govern our conversations, we miss the opportunity for growth. Let us set ground rules together, ensuring this remains constructive. This is about leveraging our collective strengths." A murmur of agreement rippled through several colleagues, their nods igniting a flicker of hope within her. Yet, Tom's contemplative silence enveloped like a shadow, leaving Lucy acutely aware of the precarious balance she now walked. If she could keep the momentum alive, maybe this could be the turning point for her, her career, and the team. As they broke out into smaller groups, Lucy chose to circulate as a facilitator rather than a leader. She positioned herself as a partner in dialogue, allowing her colleagues to stumble, explore, and ultimately refine their ideas. The energy in the room shifted, they began to engage authentically, exchanging thoughts and providing feedback with a level of enthusiasm that Lucy had yet to experience among them. But Tom remained an imposing figure, watching attentively from his corner. She noticed he was increasingly absent from the conversations despite his physical presence, a detail that intrigued her. Was he truly allowing her to take charge, or was this patience a facade of his management style? After the first session wrapped up, Lucy gathered everyone together to reflect on what had transpired. "What did we learn today?" she asked, eager for the validation that would confirm her instincts were right. A flurry of responses filled the air until one voice stood out, "We need more of this, Lucy. You've led us to rethink our barriers." Her heart raced at that acknowledgement, but then she caught Tom's eye. He was leaning forward slightly, his expression unreadable yet commanding. Deep inside, a challenge flickered. Was this the moment she needed to fully stake her claim? As she closed the session, Lucy felt buoyed by the emerging camaraderie, yet an unsettling realization surfaced. The exhilaration of their shared ideas could not quell the sense of an inevitable confrontation with Tom that awaited her. Did she seek to challenge his authority, or was she destined to remain within the framework he established, regardless of her breakthroughs today? This internal conflict surged within her, amplifying with each heartbeat. Would she take the bold step towards redressing the power dynamics that dictated her day-to-day existence, or would she succumb to the comfortable inertia that had been the norm? The tension thickened. It was now time to confront not only Tom but also the barriers she had put up inside herself. The moment of clarity beckoned, a decision awaited at the threshold of her instincts and ambitions. What revelation awaited Lucy beyond this pivotal juncture? Would she redefine her place among her peers, or would the fear of backlash shackle her newfound confidence? The workshop's closing moments echoed in Lucy's mind as she stepped out of the conference room, a torrent of adrenaline mingling with echoes of feedback and opinions. The praise she received bolstered her spirits, but the specter of Tom lingered, a shadow that continued to darken her resolve. She needed to make sense of her newfound influence and determine whether it was a fleeting moment or the start of something deeper. In the days following the workshop, Lucy found herself entangled in a newfound rhythm. Conversations with colleagues reflected a subtle shift, the air now charged with the daring spirit of innovation that she had aimed to ignite. Yet, every interaction bore a weight. Was it genuine change, or merely a temporary response to her assertiveness? She spent evenings re-evaluating her approach, meticulously crafting strategies that embraced collaboration while questioning how to tighten her grip on leadership without falling into the pit of Tom's dominance again. The more she pondered this balance, the more it became clear that her challenge was not just external. She was wrestling with an internal transformation that had vast implications for her sense of self. Tom's presence at the workplace felt like a constant reminder of the past, his authority suffocating yet undeniable. She had to understand him, not to acquiesce but to define her own boundary within the realm he controlled. The more she observed him, the less impenetrable he seemed. It became clear that behind his stoic facade lay vulnerabilities she might be able to exploit. Her strategy began to evolve. Instead of viewing Tom solely as an adversary, she opted to see him as a point of reference against which she could measure her own progress. Gradually, Lucy filled her notebook with insights both about herself and Tom. What were his triggers? What made him uncomfortable? How could his management style be reshaped into something more collaborative, so they could coexist rather than collide? As she ventured to small meetings and lunch conversations, her colleagues began to share their frustrations and aspirations, further revealing the cracks in the foundation of Tom's leadership. Collecting these thoughts initiated an evolution in Lucy's role. She was not just a participant of the discussions but became a sounding board, eliciting views while subtly ironing out areas of consensus. Then came a pivotal encounter. During a casual coffee break, Tom approached her, his shoulders slightly slumped. Communication from him was an uncommon occurrence, and Lucy felt both the rush of vulnerability and a fierce pull to remain composed. "I've been hearing some interesting things from the team after your workshop. Maybe you've got something worth learning from," he remarked, undercut by a hint of challenge. The moment ignited a sense of urgency within her. Was this the potential opening she needed to shift the power dynamics? She refused to let the moment pass. "I think there's a lot more we can explore together," she replied, her heart racing as she immediately sensed the weight of her words. Clarity washed over her. She was prepared to navigate the murky waters of corporate politics by emphasizing mutual growth. Despite an underlying fear that swelled, she dared to take the initiative. Over the next few weeks, she suggested a series of joint departmental meetings to lay the groundwork for shared ownership of ideas, a direct challenge to Tom's customary top-down approach. With every meeting, Lucy felt the evolution of her confidence take root. She was stepping out of the shadow of complacency. But the deeper they entrenched themselves into collaborative dialogue, the more she sensed an imminent confrontation on the horizon. Tom began to respond in guarded ways, stifling certain conversations or posturing in ways that felt directly at odds with the open dialogue she was attempting to cultivate. As she prepared for their next meeting, an unsettling question arose. Was her path leading to collective empowerment or an inevitable clash of egos? Did Tom truly want to collaborate, or was he merely accommodating her for his own agenda? With a mix of exhilaration and trepidation, Lucy sat down to strategize. She had to be ready for whatever Tom's next move entailed. This was no longer simply about her professional development, it spiraled into a clash of visions for the entire team's future. She had to decide: would she rally her colleagues to hold Tom accountable, or would she remain mired in the fear of confrontation, risking the potential the workshop had unlocked? The balance between challenge and opportunity teetered precariously. Lucy's next steps would determine whether she could redefine her identity not just as a leader but as a catalyst for authentic transformation. As she poised herself for the impending crossroads with Tom, one thought crystallized in her mind: the true test loomed just around the corner, and its outcome would resonate well beyond the confines of the conference room. Would she confront the power dynamics, or would she silently retreat, forever pondering the what-ifs of her aspirations? The atmosphere shifted palpably as Lucy entered the conference room for the scheduled joint departmental meeting, fully aware that this was more than just another discussion. It was the arena for her burgeoning leadership and a potential confrontation with Tom. The daylight streaming through the windows, once a symbol of inspiration, now felt harsh, a spotlight illuminating the strain between her intentions and the atmosphere of tension she sensed from the moment she approached her colleagues. She had spent nights crafting the agenda, focusing on collaborative topics meant to foster unity, but now, as she surveyed the faces of her team, the faint glimmer of doubt whispered in her ear. Were they there to support her vision, or did Tom's unresolved authority loom too large over their willingness to engage? The stakes felt alarmingly high, pregnant with the potential for both breakthrough and backlash. As she initiated the meeting, Lucy felt her pulse quicken. "Thank you all for coming today. I wanted to address some of the key challenges we're facing and brainstorm together on how we can approach them collectively." She consciously emphasized the word collectively, hoping to draw Tom into a sense of partnership. Tom's gaze was steely, a stark contrast to the slight enthusiasm that flickered in the room. His arms crossed firmly over his chest, he leaned back in his chair, an immediate signal of defensiveness. With each passing minute, the silence grew thicker, and Lucy's resolve began to teeter under the weight of his disapproval. "Collective solutions?" Tom's voice cut through the air, heavy with skepticism. "If people are just going to throw around ideas with no real direction, how do you expect us to actually implement anything?" The challenge was immediate, a cue for the others to either retreat or rally. She could feel her colleagues tense, but instead of recoiling, a surge of determination propelled her forward. "I believe that the best ideas often come from collaboration, Tom. When we include diverse perspectives, we not only find more innovative solutions but also create a sense of ownership in our decisions." Tom shifted slightly, his posture betraying a flicker of annoyance, but rather than retreating under his scrutiny, she pressed on. "We all have valuable insights to share. I want to facilitate a space where everyone feels empowered to contribute, especially when there are conflicting views." A murmur of agreement arose from a few colleagues, emboldening her resolve. Yet Tom was unyielding, his expression hardening. "And what about accountability? Often, consensus leads to indecision." His words felt like a calculated jab, intended to destabilize her. She recognized now, after much reflection, that Tom's fear of losing control was rooted in his own insecurities, a realization that offered her a sliver of clarity. She needed to frame the situation as an opportunity for him as well. "We can set parameters for accountability within our collaborative efforts. The more inclusive we are, the better we can evaluate and build upon our ideas." Tom muttered something under his breath, stepping into a defensive stance. "And what makes you think everyone here is committed to that? What if they just use this as another chance to air grievances instead of focusing on results?" His resistance felt more personal now, and Lucy sensed the urgency to diffuse the brewing conflict while making a definitive stand. "I think it's valid for everyone to voice their concerns. This way, we can address issues directly rather than letting them fester. It's all part of creating a stronger, more resilient team, don't you think?" The tension was taut, palpable in the resonance of her voice. As the meeting progressed, Lucy witnessed her colleagues shifting, some taking note while others began to express thoughts they had likely buried in the face of Tom's authoritarian reign. Each idea added to her confidence, each nod a confirmation that she was striking the right chord. But Tom's silence would not relent. His eyes narrowed, weighing each of her words against the stakes of becoming a team without his iron grip. Lucy realized this was not just pushing against the boundaries of her power, she was at the cusp of a potential eruption. Would he let go, or would he escalate the stakes even further? As the meeting neared its closure, a question loomed over her like a dark cloud: was she unraveling the control Tom had wielded, or was this merely a prelude to an explosive clash? The outcome might redefine her trajectory, both personally and professionally. The tension was only intensifying. Later that evening, as she reflected over her chaotic notes, one unyielding thought filled her mind. She had made strides toward real change, but the real test of her leadership and of her evolving sense of self had yet to unfold. How far would Tom go to maintain his dominion, and how far would she be willing to take her newfound voice? The crossroads was imminent, and she would need to prepare herself for the confrontation ahead. In that moment, she understood, the inevitable clash was no longer just a figure of speech, it was on the precipice of becoming her reality. As dawn broke, casting a golden hue across her cluttered desk, Lucy felt the weight of the world pressing down on her. The meeting with Tom was just a prelude to what lay ahead, a battle not only for her ideas but for her position within the company. She could no longer pretend that the morning light symbolized clarity, instead, it illuminated the shadows of doubt lurking within her. Determined to regain her footing, she launched into preparation for the next phase of her strategy. She meticulously analyzed the feedback collected from her colleagues during the meeting. Many had expressed frustration simmering beneath the surface, they wanted to contribute but felt stifled under Tom's reign. This was her leverage, a way to channel their collective dissatisfaction into actionable change. Throughout the following day, Lucy sought out informal conversations, crafting a web of alliances. She noticed how more subtle cues conveyed strength, nods of understanding, slight bursts of laughter during shared grievances. Each small moment added bricks to her foundation of support. At the very least, she could muster a coalition that recognized the need for transformation. Yet Tom loomed large, a constant reminder of the resistance she faced. Each time she approached him for a discussion on best practices or clarified plans for the upcoming project, she was met with skepticism turned icy. Conversations quickly metamorphosed into verbal battlegrounds, often ending with her retreating in exasperation, her confidence dented. It gnawed at her, an unsettling realization that his confrontation was fueled not by a quest for improvement, but by a desire to maintain his control. Her resolve softened, however, during a fateful lunch break. Sitting with her peers, she listened closely. "I just wish we didn't have to tiptoe around him," one colleague lamented, glancing over her shoulder as if expecting Tom to materialize from thin air. "He used to foster a collaborative environment, but now it feels like we're walking on eggshells." Lucy seized this moment. What if we shared some of these sentiments directly with him? Articulating how we feel might prompt change, she suggested, her voice steady despite the nervous flutter in her stomach. The words sparked a flicker of interest among her peers. What if they drafted a unified message to Tom? A document reinforcing their desire for a more open, accountable culture? As her colleagues peppered her with ideas on structure and tone, Lucy felt a new sense of power bubbling up. This was not her battle alone anymore, they were a collective force. With renewed conviction, she outlined a plan. A proposal incorporating both individual feedback and workplace cohesion would serve as the vehicle for change. It would blend their varied insights into a cohesive narrative, positioning her at the forefront as a facilitator of transformation even if Tom didn't know it yet. But the thought of presenting it to him was daunting. Even as her strategy solidified, the fear of his reaction clawed at her, a relentless reminder of the risk she was taking. The hour drew nearer for Lucy to schedule a meeting with Tom to deliver her carefully curated proposal. She rehearsed her pitch, striving to incorporate empathy for Tom's position while reinforcing the promising unity building within their team. Would he see this for what it was, a chance for collaboration? Or would he retaliate, wielding his authority as a weapon against her? As the clock ticked down, she envisioned the potential fallout from the meeting. Would her colleagues support her or distance themselves if things turned sour? Even if they rallied behind her, how would she manage the disappointment of seeing her hope extinguished in Tom's contempt? The stakes had skyrocketed, she stood at the threshold of a defining moment. The confrontation with Tom was no longer abstract, it was imminent, and her heart raced in anticipation of the impending clash. She would have to be ready to defend her vision, her role, and the very ethos she sought to embed within the team. Lucy inhaled deeply, determined to trust her instincts. But beneath her preparations, a new question loomed with unnerving clarity: would she emerge as a leader, or would Tom's grip prove too powerful? The answer was only moments away. The moment had arrived. Lucy felt the anxiety coil in her stomach, an ominous presence that threatened to unravel her carefully constructed plan. Sitting across from Tom in his new corner office, a space that felt more like a fortress than a workplace, she took a breath to steady herself. The cluttered desk that usually fogged her mind now loomed like an obstacle, a tangible reflection of the challenges she faced. "Lucy, you wanted to discuss the upcoming project?" Tom's tone was curt, his gaze seemingly searching for weaknesses in her demeanor. It sent a chill down her spine, but she reminded herself of the purpose behind this meeting. This wasn't merely about a project, it was about the future of her team and her own role in it. She opened her presentation with the collected thoughts of her colleagues. As she articulated their frustrations, each pointed word cut through her nervousness. "I appreciate your leadership, Tom," she began, her voice steadying. "But I believe there's an opportunity for us to improve our communication and teamwork." His eyebrow arched slightly, a challenge hidden behind stoicism. "And you think your team is competent enough to provide such feedback?" His dismissive tone struck a nerve. But Lucy pressed on, the tide of her resolve swelling. "They are eager to contribute. We've identified a few areas where collaboration could enhance our work." She anchored her points in specific examples, each illustrating a collective desire for change rather than dissent. Tom's eyes narrowed. "Change, huh? How do I know this isn't just some flailing attempt from a dissatisfied bunch? Sounds like the ramblings of a few disgruntled employees." The words rattled her confidence momentarily, but she saw the glimmer of truth in the faces of her colleagues, who lingered just outside his office, waiting. Lucy clenched her fists under the table, summoning the strength that had burned within her over these past weeks. "What if we present this feedback as an opportunity for growth?" she countered, allowing her expression to soften slightly. "We could implement a feedback loop, integrating our team's ideas into ongoing projects. It's not merely about dissent, it's a potential pathway for enhanced productivity and morale." Tom's silence was thick, an echo of her mounting uncertainty. She could sense his scrutiny. Internally, she wrestled with the implications of failure. A rejection could not only impact her immediate career but stifle the aspirations of her peers, quashing the motivation they had shown her. Moments ticked by as she awaited his response, feeling the urgency of their tension weigh heavier. Finally, Tom leaned back, surveying her with a more contemplative expression. "So you want me, as the big boss, to listen to the little cogs in my machine?" It was a reductionist view that made her blood boil. She fought the urge to react impulsively. Instead, she leaned forward slightly, grounding herself in what had fueled her desire for change in the first place: the empowerment of her peers. "I'm asking you to see beyond the titles. A collaborative approach could enhance our output and overall satisfaction. Don't you want to create an environment where everyone can thrive?" There was an unyielding strength in her words, the quiet determination of someone who could envision results beyond corporate hierarchies. For a brief moment, Tom's guarded expression faltered. But then he shook his head, the moment slipping away. "I don't have time for the whims of a team. You're not thinking practically, Lucy." The dismissal stung, a wave of frustration washing over her. But amidst the torrent, a flicker of revelation ignited. She understood more now. To be heard, she would need to rewrite the narrative, not just for Tom but for herself. Would she accept this defeat or turn it into a foundation for persistent growth? As Lucy rose from the chair, striking a decisive note, she realized that her battle might not be won in a single meeting. This was merely the beginning of a larger fight. "I appreciate your time, Tom. But I will continue to advocate for my team. Change doesn't come without disruption, and I'm prepared for that." As she exited the office, resolve surged through her veins. There was no retreat now. She was on a new battlefield, ready to face the struggles ahead. The stakes had transformed once again, igniting her will to push back against the odds and hold Tom accountable. And with that thought echoing through her mind, Lucy couldn't shake the feeling that an even greater challenge awaited her, a moment that would demand every ounce of courage she had yet to muster. As she stepped away from the office, her heart raced with the weight of the unknown. What awaited her next could either crown her as a leader or shatter her dreams entirely. The days following the meeting with Tom shaped Lucy's resolve into something remarkable. As the weeks blended into one another, she recognized a pivotal shift not just within herself, but throughout her team. The whispers of discontent that had once permeated the office were gradually evolving into a concerted effort aimed at addressing systemic issues escalating from leadership. Lucy transformed her frustration into action, solidifying alliances among her colleagues. The feedback loop she had envisioned was becoming a tangible reality, absorbing thoughts from everyone around her. They weren't just ideas thrown into the air, they were being cultivated, discussed during coffee breaks, and shared in small group meetings. This collective approach prompted a subtle but shifting dynamic. The groundwork of empowerment was being laid down, redefining team ownership of projects. By bringing together a cross-section of her peers, Lucy had unwittingly crafted not just a platform for discourse, but a powerful coalition. They planned to present their shared insights and engage Tom collectively, amplifying their voices in ways that felt irrevocably powerful. Each week, Lucy felt more like a leader and less like the unsure intern who initially walked through those doors. When the time came for their unified meeting with Tom, Lucy stood at the helm, embodying the confidence that her journey had instilled in her. She had meticulously prepared alongside her colleagues. They agreed to frame their strategy not only around the need for change but around how such changes would bolster productivity and creativity, benefiting everyone, including Tom himself. As they gathered in the conference room, anticipation filled the space with tangible electricity. "Today, we are here not just to share grievances," Lucy opened, feeling winded yet invigorated by the support surrounding her. "We want to discuss the potential we can unlock as a united front." Tom's posture was less defensive this time, there was an openness to it. Perhaps he realized his stance could no longer repel the energy coalescing around them. Her colleagues shared their insights, illuminating the unique strengths that made up their team, and Lucy observed Tom's inscrutable expression shift. "Maybe transparency would give us better grounding," proposed one of her peers, while Lucy nodded fervently in agreement. Another added, "We want to champion our roles, not hand them over. Let us define what would make our work more effective collectively." As her colleagues articulated their points, Lucy felt the potency of shared voices thrumming through the room. It was not just her voice anymore, it was a symphony of commitment. Yet, like clockwork, Tom's critical streak emerged. In true form, he interjected, "We don't need chaos masquerading as collaboration. How can I be sure these ideas won't just lead astray rather than provide clarity?" A hush fell over the room, staring at him wide-eyed. But Lucy was resolute. "We can define parameters for engagement that will maintain accountability while allowing everyone to contribute. What has held us back is the imbalance of open communication. We believe this new framework could actually mobilize us to be more efficient and innovative." Here, beneath the palpable tension, Lucy saw a glimmer of recognition in Tom's eyes. There was a hint of contemplation that had not been there before. Perhaps he was not solely the barricade she had imagined, perhaps this shift was beginning to reveal the potential for collaboration. As discussions unfolded, the proposals layered upon one another, and soon a consensus emerged. They would establish a trial period implementing some of their suggestions for improving interactions. Hope blossomed anew, buoying Lucy's spirits. The fear of leadership dissolving beneath a wave of possibilities ignited her determination. The meeting closed with a sense of optimism that had previously seemed impossible. But it wasn't about achieving everything in one fell swoop. It was about momentum, about laying a course forward that acknowledged both their strengths and their challenges. As Lucy exited the room, her colleagues gathered around her, energized by their collective victory. For the first time, she stood not just as a participant in a discussion, but as a catalyst for the change she knew they desperately needed. Days turned into weeks, and the workshop structure now held firm roots, fostering an atmosphere where ideas flourished and the team thrived. Lucy had not only found her voice, but in standing for her colleagues, she had built a support system that amplified their aspirations, a tapestry of teamwork that radiated authenticity. Unquestionably, her personal growth reminded her that leadership wasn't merely a title, it was a responsibility and an opportunity to shape environments conducive to collective betterment. At the close of her internship, Lucy received recognition not just for her independent projects, but as a valued contributor to a cultural shift within the company. The CEO himself acknowledged her courage in advocating for change and her unwavering resolve in the face of adversity. "You've proven a steadfast role within our ranks," he affirmed, and in that moment, Lucy felt an exhilarating rush of accomplishment wash over her. She had transcended her doubts, her hesitation no longer a tether binding her to silence. The shy girl who had once felt overlooked had evolved into a confident voice, setting standards and leading discussions that would resonate far beyond the confines of her initial doubts. Standing at the precipice of her future, Lucy realized she had embarked on a journey of lifelong growth, one brimming with potential. She accepted a full-time role at the firm, now equipped with a toolkit of insights and strategies that could empower others, because she had finally learned the value of her own voice. This newfound empowerment ignited a burning desire within her not only to achieve for herself but to facilitate spaces where others could share in the triumphs of their own expressions, their own actions. And with that thought resonating firmly in her mind, Lucy stepped into the future, determined to embody the leader she had become, a leader who thrived not through authority, but through collaboration, courage, and authentic connection. Now, it's your turn to carry the torch. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help us share these powerful narratives. Comment your reactions and theories about this ending. You need to share your thoughts. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion, because true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions. Don't wait even one more second.